Anson Chan, welcome to Scotland and to Edinburgh. We're absolutely delighted that you've so kindly agreed to join us here at the Asia Scotland Institute to share your thoughts about Hong Kong. And really just to say, for the benefit of those watching this interview, that the Asia Scotland Institute, which I founded 5 years ago, has been set up to equip tomorrow's leaders, young leaders in Scotland, future leaders, with the knowledge and skills to re-engage or engage with Asia. So understanding Asia, understanding Hong Kong is hugely important, and that's why we're so grateful you're here. Perhaps you could talk to us about your initial thoughts on Hong Kong.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be here, and I thank the Asia Scotland Institute for this opportunity, really, to refocus this country's interest and the world's interest on what is happening in our corner of the world. I think it is important that the rest of the world understands how China is treating Hong Kong under the one country, two systems concept and the promises laid down in the Joint Declaration and the Basic Law. Because for many years now, after the handover, Hong Kong has disappeared from the radar of our main trading partners, and I think it's a pity, because Hong Kong has a role to play, not just vis-a-vis sustainable economic growth in China, the modernization of China, but also vis-a-vis the rest of the world and the ability of the rest of the world to trade and engage with China with its 1.3 billion population. So I'm trying to draw attention to the good, not very much of it, the not so good, and to express concern about the steady erosion of Hong Kong's way of life and our basic rights and freedoms.
Anson, you are known as the Iron Lady of Hong Kong for good reason, for your involvement with leading the revolution, the umbrella revolution in Hong Kong against some of the things happening in mainland China. Could you explain to us how that initiative started and your thoughts on that?
Well, because of my nearly 40 years service in the Hong Kong government, I have a better understanding, and I've also been an elected legislative council member, so I come, as it were, with experience from both sides of the political spectrum. And what I see worries me a great deal. First, the deteriorating quality of governance. Partly the fault of the chief executive and his team, but also partly because we see increasing interference from Beijing in the implementation of one country, two systems. The young people are particularly worried about the erosion of Hong Kong's lifestyle and the basic rights and freedoms that we are supposed to enjoy under the Basic Law, particularly freedoms such as freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. These are all important qualities that have made Hong Kong the city that it is, and which ultimately are our strengths vis-a-vis China. What we're seeing happening is that with the growing economic clout of China, the rest of the world's attention are all focused on China, quite forgetting that Hong Kong plays a very, very unique role. The fact that we still have sizable foreign investors living and working in Hong Kong, and I want to draw attention what our strengths are and how important it is to maintain those strengths if we are going to continue to make a unique contribution to our country's growth.
You formed your own group looking at some of the issues surrounding the development of democracy or the defense of democracy in Hong Kong. Could you talk about the initiatives associated with that and the extent to which you feel that progress has or has not been made?
If I look at the attitude of our younger generation, there is definitely a heightened political awareness, particularly following the umbrella movement, which lasted 79 days. The young people today have very different aspirations. They're not so preoccupied about material acquisitions, but they are very, very concerned about what sort of a future they have. Is one country, two systems going to continue to exist? And in particular, they are very concerned to hang on to Hong Kong's core values, because these are things that matter to the young people. And this is a very, very encouraging trend, because I think Hong Kong's future lies with our younger generation. These are our future political leaders.
Given what's happening in Hong Kong, is it possible that this could have a reverse impact and the one country, two systems idea could indeed eventually become one country, one system, and that what's happening in Hong Kong will impact on mainland China?
Yes, I think at the time when Deng Xiaoping crafted One Country, Two Systems, he clearly envisaged that Hong Kong's way of life, the way we govern, and the way people, exist and tolerate different points of view, that in some way Hong Kong would have a beneficial effect on the rest of China. And we certainly felt that whether it is in politics or in professional know-how, managerial know-how, in the standards of government, that we are agent for change and change for the better within our country as a whole. And we can continue to play that role, but only if one country, two systems remain intact. In other words, that we continue to have the rule of law, an independent judiciary, separation of powers between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, and continue to enjoy basic rights and freedoms.
Could you ever envisage, driven by Hong Kong, one country, one system, the system being the form of democracy created in Hong Kong?
Yes, I could. In fact, I think when Deng Xiaoping said one country, two systems will last for 50 years, I think he was clearly envisaging that over this period of time, the two systems will grow closer together. And in fact, he was asked by some business people, what if 50 years is not enough? He then said, well, we can have another 50 years.
We've seen the things that happened in Europe with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Is it possible that as people in Eastern Europe began to discover the things that they didn't have under the Soviet regime, that similar situations could emerge in China?
Yes, I think within China, first of all, the Tiananmen incident. Secondly, I think the leadership in Beijing took a very firm view that what happened with the Soviet Union was the wrong way to go, that they should be concentrating on economic reforms and not proceeding on the political front. And particularly with this overarching concern to maintain the supremacy of the one-party system rule and to maintain control. Control to them is paramount. So at the first whiff of instability and therefore losing control, the tendency of the leadership is to crack down very, very hard, whether in Hong Kong or particularly in the mainland. And we've seen more signs of repression since Xi Jinping came to power 3 years ago.
Anson, given what's going on, I wonder if you ever feel concerned about your own personal safety. Is that a matter that troubles you?
I never used to until the incident involving the disappearance of these 5 book publishers in Hong Kong. What this demonstrates and sends a chill down our spine in Hong Kong is the fact that today we cannot even take for granted our personal safety, because the exercise of extrajudicial powers on Hong Kong territory means that even though we may not have broken any Hong Kong laws, if the Chinese leadership or the minions down below take a dislike to anything that we're doing or saying, Hong Kong people can be made to disappear within Hong Kong itself. And this applies not just to politicians doing things that Beijing doesn't like. It could easily apply also to business disputes. And that is why this particular incident has made the business community sit up and take notice.
In the meetings that we've had while you've been in Scotland, you've spoken about the conditions that could lead possibly to revolution in mainland China. And I'd be grateful if you could expand on that.
My hope, I think the hope of many people, both within and outside Hong Kong, is that the leadership in Beijing will have the vision and the courage to see the need for change, and therefore to manage this change. Because you have an increasing middle class, you have Chinese traveling overseas, whether for education, sometimes for residence, and also for investments. They see a lot about what's going on in the world. They see other people enjoying basic rights and freedoms. And sooner or later, they're going to question the legitimacy of one-party system rule. And why is it that the party knows it all? Why do they not have greater participation in policy making? I think the pervasiveness of social media, the fact that even though there is censorship, nevertheless, people can still see quite a lot about what's going on in the rest of the world, are also going to lead them to question, why is it our society is not more free? I think it's part of the economic and social development of the country as a whole. I take the view that when people find their basic needs satisfied, they will have other aspirations. They will want more say in policy making, particularly in things like environmental degradation, the quality of education, freedom of expression, freedom of religion. These are bound to come.
You are in Scotland at a very interesting time. It's sort of the middle of the day here, on the day when millions of people are voting in the referendum on whether the United Kingdom should remain in Europe or leave. Neither of us know at the time that I'm talking to you now what the outcome will be. But I would be grateful if you could reflect on how you and how perhaps people in China view the fact that there is such a substantial vote taking place on an issue of this sort.
It makes us very envious in Hong Kong that we cannot enjoy the right to vote for our leaders, whether it's the chief executive or members of our legislature. As I pointed out in one of my talks here, I think the Chinese leadership would find it absolutely astonishing that a country, for example, in the context of the Scottish referendum, would willingly give up a part of its territory, much less allow its people to vote on its future.
Yes.
But I think this will also come to China, maybe not in my generation, because I think to promote democracy and democratic values in the average Chinese, you need to change mindset. You need to start with basic education, and in my view, it will take at least, if not 2 generations.
My last question has to do with your view about what the British government should do in terms of voicing its support for Hong Kong as one of the signatories of the agreement. And I ask this question not in order to be hypercritical of China and its government, but for advice as to what you believe the British government should do and how it should do it.
We want the British to stand up and be more robust in defending the Joint Declaration and the Basic Law, one country, 2 systems. We want the British to acknowledge that they are the co-signatory to an international treaty called the Joint Declaration, upon which Hong Kong's mini-constitution, the Basic Law, is based. So Britain has a very clear legal and moral obligation to help defend this system. It, after all, made solemn promises to the people of Hong Kong in the lead-up to the handover. China made solemn promises, and not just to the population in Hong Kong, but to the rest of the world. We share core values with this country, and the core values lie at the back of the entire Joint Declaration and the Basic Law. And when Britain sees China attempting to rewrite the Basic Law and pulling back on one country, 2 systems and interfering left, right, and center, then I think Britain must make its stance very, very clear. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about Britain honoring its promises, but perhaps more importantly, Britain reaffirming consistently certain core values by which members of the international community should live by.
And it's right to say, in a sense, this isn't so much a direct negative criticism of the Chinese leadership as a reminder of what both countries signed.
Absolutely, yes. You do not have to confront China. In other words, you do not need to be so afraid of offending China. You're simply just saying, these are our values. These are values that we live by. These are values that have made this country great. And all we're asking for is for the Chinese to honor its promises to the people of Hong Kong and to the rest of the world.
Yes. And Anson, finally, thank you for bringing the sunshine with you to Edinburgh. And I'm reminded of your close connections with Scotland. Your daughter was at university, here at the University of Edinburgh, and we're in one of their buildings here at the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation. And your granddaughter has just graduated from St Andrews. So there are lots of connections between you and Scotland. And for that and many other reasons, we look forward to welcoming you back here before too long. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.